please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. In a world that moved so quickly, there was one girl who remained unseen. She sat in the darkest corner of a busy city, where people rushed by without a single glance in her direction. Her pale skin, almost ghostly under the dim light, blended with the cold, unfeeling concrete of the street. Her long white hair draped around her face, but it wasn't enough to hide the pain that reflected in her eyes. She was not invisible. No, the people saw her. They saw her. But they chose to ignore her. To them, she was nothing more than a discarded doll, left behind and forgotten. Her presence meant nothing in the grand scheme of things. There was no room for her in their world, a world built on achievements, power, and recognition. The girl had learned long ago that she wasn't welcome. She had heard the whispers of passers-by, the harsh words thrown her way. Worthless, they called her. Useless. These were words she had grown accustomed to, words that had shaped her reality. No one had ever tried to help her. No one had ever offered a hand to lift her from the cold, lonely corner she called home. She was nothing. Her entire existence was a mistake, as if she had no place on this earth, no purpose, no future. The world continued to spin around her, but she remained still, watching, listening, but never interacting. The noises of the bustling city were like a distant hum, each sound becoming quieter and quieter, until all that remained was the silence of her own thoughts. She was trapped in her own world, a world of isolation, rejection, and despair. But, even in her darkest moments, there was a flicker of hope deep within her. A tiny spark that refused to be extinguished. She didn't know why, but something told her that there was more to her existence than the cruel judgments of others. It wasn't just her own thoughts that made her feel worthless. No, it was the looks of disdain, the sharpness of the words, thrown at her by strangers who believed they were superior. They had labeled her, judged her, without ever truly knowing her. One day, as she sat there, her heart heavy with the weight of their rejection, a group of humans passed by. They were like any other group she had seen before. They walked with purpose, their heads held high, ignoring the world around them just like the rest. But something happened that day. One of them, a man in his 30s, slowed his pace as he walked past her. He didn't look at her with disdain, nor did he turn his face away, as others had done. Instead, his eyes locked with hers. For a brief moment, the world seemed to stand still. Her breath hitched as she met his gaze. He didn't see her as worthless. He didn't see her as someone who was to be discarded. No. There was something different in his eyes, something that made her feel like she mattered. But just as quickly as it came, the moment passed. The man continued walking, his group following behind him. She was left with only the lingering warmth of his gaze, a warmth that briefly ignited something inside her. Could it be? Could there be someone who saw her as more than just a worthless soul? She shook the thought from her mind. It was foolish to even consider it. She wasn't worthy of anyone's attention, let alone compassion. The world had made sure of that. Still, as the man disappeared into the crowd, the girl couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps, just perhaps, there was more to her story than she had been told. Perhaps, in a world that had labeled her so cruelly, there was someone out there who could change everything. Little did she know that same man would return to her world, determined to prove that no one, no matter how broken, should be left behind. He would be the one to show her that even in the deepest corners of loneliness there is a chance for redemption, a chance for love. But that moment, that first encounter, was the spark that ignited the fire of her transformation. The girl, once lost and forgotten, was about to discover something far greater than herself, something that would shake the very foundation of the world she had once known. The first step had been taken, but it was only the beginning. As the city continued to hustle and bustle, the girl sat in silence waiting. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change forever. The world had overlooked her, but the humans who had passed by would prove that there was still hope, even for those deemed worthless. The journey had begun, and with it came the promise that no one, Not even the most forgotten soul would ever be left behind again. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a soft golden glow over the city. The girl remained where she had been all day, in her familiar spot, silent, invisible, forgotten. Her eyes followed the shadows as they stretched across the ground, feeling the weight of time pressing against her chest. Each passing minute felt like an eternity, each hour like a reminder that she was still no closer to escaping her fate. But something was different today. Her gaze wandered down the street where people continued to rush by, their faces filled with purpose, their lives too busy to notice the small, unimportant girl sitting alone in the corner. She had come to accept it, the way they avoided her, the way they turned a blind eye. It was easier that way. If they didn't see her, then perhaps just maybe she wouldn't have to feel the sting of their judgment. But then, something unusual happened. A group of humans, walking with the same hurried pace as everyone else, passed by her corner. As always, their eyes glazed over her, as though she were nothing more than a piece of forgotten debris on the side of the road. But then, just as they were about to walk past, one of them stopped. A man in his 30s, wearing a worn leather jacket and a cap that shadowed his face, glanced at her. His eyes met hers for a brief second, and in that fleeting moment something changed. The world around her seemed to slow down. The man did not look away. He didn't flinch or hurry past as everyone else had. He looked at her, not with disdain, but with curiosity. His expression softened, and for the first time in what felt like forever, someone saw her, really saw her. The girl's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Could this stranger really be different from all the others? She quickly looked down, unsure of what to do with the sudden warmth spreading through her chest. She wasn't used to being looked at like that. No one had ever truly looked at her before, not with kindness, not with care. But this man, he didn't see her as invisible. He saw her as someone worth looking at. He took a few steps toward her, and with each step the girl's pulse quickened. She had no idea what to expect. Was he going to mock her? Was he going to tell her to move? To get out of his way? Like so many others had? But to her surprise, he didn't do any of those things. Instead, he crouched down to her level, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity she had never felt before. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice carrying an unexpected tenderness. "You don't have to stay here." The girl's heart raced, but she didn't answer. What could she say? She was used to silence, to being ignored. She was used to being invisible. The thought of speaking, of breaking the silence, terrified her. But something about this stranger's voice, the sincerity in his words, made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could trust him. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she muttered, her voice barely audible. She immediately regretted it, cursing herself for saying anything at all. The words had slipped out before she could stop them, but the man didn't look away. He didn't laugh or walk off. Instead, he held out his hand. "You don't have to be here, not anymore. I can help you. There's a place where you'll be seen, where you'll be cared for." The girl hesitated, her eyes flicking to his outstretched hand. She had seen this before, people offering help, promising things they couldn't deliver. But there was something different about this man. His kindness wasn't a show. It wasn't just empty words. It felt genuine, like he truly cared. But could she trust him? Could she take a chance on something she had never experienced before? Kindness? She looked down at his hand, the warmth of his gesture almost too much to bear. Her hands trembled slightly, unsure whether to reach out or to pull away. She had spent so long believing that no one would ever help her, that no one would ever want to. But here he was, standing in front of her, offering something she had long forgotten: hope. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still again. The noise of the city faded, the hurried footsteps of people passing by grew distant, and all that remained was the moment, the decision she had to make. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she reached out, her fingers brushing against his. The simple contact sent a ripple of warmth through her, a feeling she had never known. For the first time, someone was offering to pull her from the darkness. I can't leave, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I'm worthless. I'm not meant to be saved. The man's grip tightened, reassuring and firm. You're not worthless. You never were. You just need someone to remind you of that. Come with me, and I'll show you that there's a place for you in this world. The girl's heart fluttered with uncertainty and fear, but also something she hadn't felt in so long: hope. It was a fragile thing, like a delicate flower in the rain, but it was real. And for the first time in her life, she believed that she might deserve a chance. As the man helped her stand up, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders begin to lift. It wasn't gone, no, the world was still as cruel as ever. But for the first time, she had someone standing by her side, someone who refused to see her as worthless. And in that moment, she realized something that would change her forever. She wasn't alone, and she never would be again. As the girl stood there, her hand still in his, a part of her couldn't believe what was happening. She had spent so long in the shadows, in a world where no one cared enough to notice her, and now someone was reaching out. Someone was offering her a lifeline. But even as the man pulled her gently toward the path that would lead her away from the street corner, doubts clouded her mind. She had been let down before. People had come and gone from her life, each time leaving her more broken than before. How could she trust this man? What if he too would leave her in the end, like everyone else? Her heart raced as the man guided her through the crowd. He had said he would help her. He had promised her a better life. But promises were just words. She had heard them before. Every day, strangers had walked past her, muttering empty words of pity. But no one had ever stayed. No one had ever truly cared. But this man, this stranger, his actions were different. His kindness wasn't just talk. He had stepped in even when no one else did. He was walking beside her now, not rushing her, not forcing her to go anywhere. But the weight of her fears hung heavily on her shoulders. "What's the catch?" she asked quietly, pulling slightly away. "Why are you doing this for me? I don't even know you." The man stopped in his tracks, turning to face her. His expression was serious, but his eyes held a warmth that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. "There's no catch," he said. "I just believe you deserve a chance, a real chance at something better. And I'm not going to let you stay in a place where you're treated like you're invisible." The girl looked away, unable to meet his gaze. "But I am invisible," she whispered. "No one wants me. No one needs me." "You're wrong," he replied gently, stepping closer. "You're not invisible. You just haven't been seen by the right people yet. People who can see your worth. People who can help you discover what you're truly capable of. I'm here to show you that." The girl's heart thudded in her chest, but fear and uncertainty still gripped her. This man had given her hope, but hope was fragile. Could she really trust it? Could she trust him? Was she ready to let go of the life she had known? The life that had kept her hidden from the world? As they continued walking, the streets around them grew quieter. The bustling crowd seemed to fade into the background, leaving just the two of them standing on the edge of something new. The girl felt a mix of emotions: fear, excitement, hope, and disbelief. She had been alone for so long that it was hard to believe that someone would actually care enough to fight for her. But this man, he wasn't just giving her empty words. He was offering her a chance to rebuild, to be something more than just the discarded girl she had been labeled as. But the world wasn't kind to people like her. She knew that better than anyone. She had been judged, cast aside, and rejected for things she couldn't control. The girl could feel the weight of all the past judgments closing in on her, the fear of being abandoned again. She wasn't sure if she was strong enough to face it. "What if I fail?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I can't change? What if I'm not worth saving?" The man's gaze softened and he placed his hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to be perfect," he said. "You just have to try. No one expects you to have it all figured out right now. I'm here to help you, every step of the way. I could hear the sincerity in his voice, and for a moment, the doubts that had plagued her began to fade. But then, as they turned a corner, a group of people walked by, their eyes lingering on her with judgment. The girl felt the familiar sting of rejection, the old voices echoing in her head. She's worthless. She'll never amount to anything. Her steps faltered, and the man noticed. He turned to her, sensing her hesitation. Hey, he said, gently, you're not the person they say you are. You're not their words. You're who you choose to be. And right now, you're choosing to trust yourself. You're choosing to believe that there's something better for you. The girl looked up at him, her heart pounding. What if I can't do it? She asked, the fear choking her words. You're already doing it, he said, his voice steady. You're here. You're with me. That's the first step. For the first time in her life, the girl felt a flicker of something powerful, something that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she was worthy of this chance. But just as she was beginning to believe, the challenges started. The people who had once ignored her now turned their attention to her again. Gossip started to spread and whispers filled the air. Why would anyone help someone like her, they said. She's not worth saving. The world wasn't going to make it easy for her. The doubt, the rejection, it all came rushing back. But the man who had stood by her side refused to let her fall. He was there every step of the way, facing the challenge with her. He had told her she wasn't worthless, and he wasn't going to let her believe otherwise. With every word of doubt, every cruel remark, the girl's resolve grew stronger. It was a battle, both within herself and against the world that had rejected her. But she wasn't alone anymore. The man beside her was showing her that her worth wasn't defined by others. She was not what they said she was. She was more than that. And as they continued their journey, the girl began to believe in something she had never allowed herself to believe before. That she could be more than just a discarded soul. She could be someone who mattered. She could be someone who mattered to herself and perhaps even to the world. As the days passed, the girl's world began to shift. Slowly but surely, the shadows that had once surrounded her started to fade. She was no longer sitting on the sidelines of life, invisible to everyone around her. The man who had reached out to her, the one who had seen beyond her worthless exterior, had guided her through every step of this new life. His presence was a constant reminder that she wasn't alone in this journey, but the road was far from easy. With every passing day, the world seemed determined to remind her of her past, of the hurtful words, the cold stares, the rejection. There were days when the weight of her past would crash down on her, and she would feel the urge to pull away, to retreat back to the place she knew best, the dark corner where no one could judge her. But this time, it was different. This time, she had a choice. She could have kept running. She could have kept hiding, letting her fears dictate her life. But something inside her began to change, a transformation that she couldn't ignore. The man who had first offered her a chance had now become her anchor. He was the one who believed in her when no one else did, and with each passing day, she started to believe in herself. One evening, as the two of them walked through a park, she stopped suddenly, her heart heavy with an unfamiliar emotion. The man turned to her, sensing her hesitation. "What's wrong?" he asked gently, his voice full of concern. The girl took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I don't want to be a burden to you anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "You've done so much for me, and I don't know if I can repay you for everything you've done." The man shook his head, a small smile on his lips. "You don't need to repay me," he said. "I'm not helping you because I expect anything in return. I'm helping you because I see your worth, and you don't have to worry about being a burden." "You're not one." The girl looked down, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "But I am a burden. I always have been," she whispered. "I've been nothing but a problem to everyone. Maybe you're just the only one who's too kind to see it." The man's expression softened, and he took her hand in his touch warm and reassuring. "You're not a burden," he repeated. "You're a person. You have worth. And you have the right to take up space in this world. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. She looked up at him, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and fear. She didn't know how to accept this kindness, this belief in her. For so long she had been taught to shrink, to stay out of the way, to believe that she wasn't deserving of love or care. But now, with his words echoing in her mind, she was beginning to feel something she hadn't felt in years: hope. But as the days went by, something inside her began to stir. An unease, a deep-rooted fear. What if she wasn't truly ready for this? What if she couldn't be the person he believed her to be? What if, despite all his help, she would still fall short of what he hoped for her? The doubts came crashing down again, and this time, they were louder than before. She tried to hide it from him, but it was clear that something was wrong. One evening, as they sat together, she couldn't keep the thoughts inside any longer. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared that I'll never be enough. I'm scared that, no matter how hard I try, I'll always be this broken person. I don't want to disappoint you. I don't want to fail you." The man's eyes were filled with understanding. He didn't rush to offer empty reassurances. Instead, he placed his hand gently on hers. His grip steady and unshakable. "I'm not here because I think you need fixing," he said, his voice calm and firm. "I'm here because I believe in who you are right now. You're not broken. You're just learning how to live differently, how to see yourself differently. And that's okay. We all have struggles. But I'll be here with you no matter what. You're not alone in this." The girl felt the weight of his words sink in. It wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about never failing or never doubting herself. It was about accepting who she was, flaws and all, and believing that she was worthy of love and care, just as she was. But just as she began to accept this, tragedy struck. One night, as they were walking through the city, a group of people approached them. They were familiar faces, those who had once deemed her worthless, those who had shunned her without a second thought. They didn't recognize her now, not the girl she was becoming, and they didn't care. They mocked her, calling her a fool for thinking she could change, for believing that anyone would ever see her as anything more than what she had always been. The girl's heart sank, the old words from her past ringing in her ears. "You're worthless. You'll never be anything." She turned to the man beside her, but his expression was unwavering. He stepped forward, standing between her and the group. His eyes were calm, but there was a fire in them, a determination that was hard to ignore. "I've seen what you don't," he said firmly. "She's not worthless. She never was." The group laughed, but the man didn't back down. "You want to call her worthless? Fine. But I see her strength, I see her heart. And I'll stand by her no matter what you say." In that moment, something shifted in the girl. For the first time, she didn't feel the weight of the insults. She didn't feel the crushing judgment. She felt empowered by the man's words, by his unwavering belief in her. He had fought for her, not with fists or words, but with the kind of love and conviction that transcended all the cruelty in the world. And in that moment, she realized the truth. She wasn't worthless. She was worthy. Worthy of love. Worthy of kindness. Worthy of a second chance. The struggle wasn't over. The world wouldn't change overnight. But as long as she had people who believed in her, as long as she had the strength to believe in herself, there was nothing that could make her feel worthless again. The girl wasn't alone anymore. She had been saved, not by anyone's sacrifice, but by the revelation that her value wasn't defined by others. Her worth was intrinsic, undeniable, and it was hers to claim.